All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Hey, guys.
Okay. So.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi. All right. Okay. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Welcome to the first Launchpad Accelerator series. In our first series, we've invited Daniel to share on how to build a brand that converts people into lifelong customers. So before we get started, here's a gist of what will be happening in our hour-long webinar. So there will be a Q&A session at the end. So stay tuned for that, yeah? So let me introduce what is the Launchpad Accelerator series. So over 30,000 companies have shut down in 2020 due to the pandemic. So the Launchpad Accelerator series is created to help businesses rise above the current challenges and navigate in new market conditions. The mission is to empower and accelerate your business to the next level. So what will you get? You can learn, connect, share, be empowered, and get curious. So we'll be inviting industry experts to hold webinars, fireside chats, panel sessions, workshops, and keynote speeches. And we'll talk about branding, digital marketing, paid ads, SEO, content marketing, marketing automation, and so much more. So you can check out our website where you can sign up to get notified and be a part of our guest list. And we will notify you with upcoming events. So a bit of housekeeping, just mute your sound, and you can show your video after the Q&A session. In the Q&A session, you can type in the chat box or even ask through the video. And a copy of the slides and recording will also be given to you. And feel free to share your name, your contact, your company, your email in the chat box so that we can connect with each other. All right, so thank you for listening to the introduction. Now, let's welcome Daniel, our speaker. So let me give you an introduction of Daniel. So Daniel is a design architect turned brand consultant who founded 10 Cavemen, a holistic branding, creative, and design consultancy agency that helps evolve businesses into distinct purpose. So he has worked with notable brands such as Mastic Group, Asset Kayamas, UOA Group, SP Setia, Unista, and also Tian Tian Yogurt. So now let's all welcome Daniel for his presentation. All right, Daniel.
Hey, thanks, Shannon.
Your screen?
Yeah, can you guys hear us? Can you guys hear me? Shannon, am I clear?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, cool. All right. Hey, everyone. I hope you guys had your coffee already. So, yeah, can you guys see my screen? Okay, great. So, let's begin this series of how to build a brand that converts people into lifelong customers. Feel free to sort of also chat if you have any questions so that we can also keep track of the questions that you guys asked throughout this entire talk. Okay, so back to this, right? Big old question, right? Lifelong customers, sort of every business's dream to build that in terms of community building. But as business leaders, right, we all desire to build a brand that is purposeful, distinct, and well-loved, right? As you know, most businesses today, when you treat your customers like ATMs, you treat your employees like resources, right? Basically, people are not stupid these days. They kind of know that. But when you talk about brand building, you're really talking about how to build that brand that people are proud of. And it's not just for your customers, it's also for your internal teams, right? But the reality is that brand building is damn hard to do, right? And if it's easy, everyone could have done it now, right? So what's missing here? I think for the fact that let's align on this level where what a brand is first, because I think there's a very big misconception in the market that like brand is just a logo or design. But I will just walk you through this so that there is alignment on our side, right? So we all know this logo. This is a very famous brand, right? Apple. Any designer can just copy this for, let's say, $10, 10 ringgit. Yeah, you can just copy this design, right? So it's not really just about the logo design, right? But is this a brand, right? Is this a brand? Yeah, it is a brand, right? But or is the slogan the brand, the tagline the brand? Think different. Is that Apple's mantra? Is that the philosophy behind Apple's thinking? Is Steve Jobs the brand? Right. But we also know Apple for its products. The wide variety of different products as well, ranging from the iPhones, the iMacs, right, to the iOS or their other offerings as well. So is this the brand? Does this make up the brand? But they are very, very famous for their creative videos as well. I believe you guys have seen some of their viral videos. A lot of lifestyle, a lot of storytelling, right? A lot of some, even in previous years, they did a lot of celebrity endorsements as well. So is that part of the brand, right? Even their billboards, right? Or their creative ads on print, right? So is this trying to convey the brand? Is that marketing or is that the brand, right? But to think about it further, right? Put it a bit further, right? How Apple does their branding is they also go a lot into social media and they create an entire campaign called Shot on iPhone. I think previously it was called World Gallery or something like that, right? Which they had a dedicated website before, but now they just focus on Instagram a lot, right? And if you notice, if you go through the whole Instagram, there's nothing on products, right? It's essentially just getting the community to sort of participate in this campaign where they share photos taken by their products, iPhone products or Apple products, right? And sort of tag that. And the winners actually get featured on billboards all around the world. So is that part of the brand, right? So you can see here example. These are the examples of various featured galleries, right? And if you really go deep, right, most of us, our first experience with Apple is through the retail store, right? You go to a retail store, you walk in and you probably queue for a long time, right? And you sort of experience the whole ID, the whole brand environment that Apple gives, right? It's a very clean place, right? They feature their phones nicely. There's geniuses that serve you, right? Like as you can see here, right? Every launch, everybody wants a brand like this, right? Everybody wants to build a brand like Apple, right? Where you get that really long, strong, loyal community that lines up to get products, right? So is this part of the brand? Is the ID the brand? Is the retail part of this entire brand, right? Even the way they train their teams, they're called geniuses, by the way. So it makes you a stupid guy who goes to the store to buy from geniuses, right? But is that for empowerment? Is that for team empowerment? Is that to make sure that the teams are ready to sort of service customers, right? Even the way they host events, they plan the events, right? How they want to sort of create hype in the market, how they want to invite people, right? Is that part of the brand? And Steve Jobs is really, really famous for his talk, right? His glorious sales talk, right? How he introduced products, how he solves problems, right? And this has been further carried on by the team with under Tim Cook's supervision, how they introduce products, how they sort of talk about their offerings, their new updates. Every year, without fail, Apple has constantly updated their stuff, making sure that it's relevant to the market, making sure that the people, the community is benefiting more from the brand. So, and you can see here, right, this entire ecosystem that Apple has tried to build over the years has played a very vital role in brand building as well. So when you look at all this, right, you sort of feel that it's not just about products, right? It's not just about services, right? There's something more, right? So it's a very intangible feeling, but again, is that the brand, right? And yeah, and lately, they've been pushing things like Apple Arcade, Apple Fitness, even during the MCO period, they're trying to make all this more accessible so people get to stay at home, especially during the pandemic, right? So that people can sort of celebrate or live their life even during lockdown, right? Right. So they have also this really huge HQ. Of course, most of you will be thinking, oh yeah, this is $1 billion brand, so they can invest in this. But then there's a lot of other $1 billion brands as well who don't take their internal team building or internal culture seriously. But Apple has been building its entire internal team or its culture, its brand culture through thought processes like innovation, making sure that lifestyle is a part of the thing because Apple is always associated with lifestyle, right? Right. So, or is the website the brand, right? Because again, the website is quite compelling. And if you really go deep, right, beyond just the what is shown on websites or what you interact as a customer, whether you're browsing through the landing pages or browsing through products to sort of understand what the USP is all about, right? The images that they bombard you with, the key messaging that they try to entice you with, like Feel Mom's Day with color, Apple has a plan, right? So is that the brand, right? But there's actually a very short clue, which if you were to do your own research, right, you can actually go deep behind to understand what goes behind the brand building. And if you just scroll down at the website, at the end of each website, and you notice there's this segment here, right, that says besides the consumer-friendly words like Apple TV, Apple Music, you notice there's this segment here that highlights things like Apple values, right? And if you go deep into that, you notice that they talk a lot about the brand itself, what the brand is, what it stands for, the emotion behind the brand, the perception that they want to give, how the brand fights for racial equity, right? Justice, right? How the brand fights for accessibility, making sure that even handicapped people, disabled people can use their products in a much more human-friendly way, right? A much more easier way, right? Right? How they want to sort of make sure that even at every point of the supply chain, at every point of their manufacturing process, all the way to retail, that people comes first, right? In everything they do, making sure that it's safe. Yeah, I get this question a lot as well. Like Apple had this very bad reputation before where the employees used to jump suicide or what in China factories and whatnot. But then again, if you really think about it, businesses make mistakes all the time. It's just about how do you sort of live by those values and improve at every moment of time. And this is where Apple as a company is always growing, it's always innovating, it's always challenging itself, it's always improving, right? And they update their progress by the numbers, as you can see here, in how they sort of build that happy working place for their teams all around the world, right? And Apple has also sort of positioned itself beyond just what we are thinking right now. It's really looking at the future of sustainability. Like it has a plan to help the world. So again, this brand is not just selling you phones or things or stuff. It's really trying to connect with you on a very human level, right? It's trying to relate to a bigger picture of the human society, right?
I understand everyone of us are working from home right now, so it's about managing how we want to save on electricity as well.
Sorry? Hello? Was that a question?
No, I think the person didn't mute his.
Oh, okay. I thought he was asking a question. Yeah, couldn't really hear. It's a bit soft. Yeah, okay. So back to this. So how Apple dedicates itself to providing tools for COVID-19 screening as well. Right, they have support communities where you can actually go in and ask anybody about Apple as well. They publicize on the news, letting you know how they want to sort of help, like LGBT, like repair programs, renewal programs, stuff like that. And the baseline of this, even though it's so fancy, there's this lifestyle, this human component, there's this community component, and they also stay very true to the ethics and compliance, like how they want to make sure that they do the right thing, even when it's not easy, right? And you notice that when they talk about the brand behind the business level, they talk a lot about their beliefs, right? The belief system, right? What they believe, how the world should be like, right? How the brand can contribute to the greater good of the world, right? Something that goes beyond just transactional product selling, right? But then again, right? See, Apple's just another computer company, right? And sells you just a phone, and this phone could not. Maybe it's not as innovative as Samsung. Who knows? It's debatable, right? It's just another phone, but it carries so much intangible meaning, right? It carries so much purpose behind this brand, the story, the communities, the belief system. But it's just a phone, right? So does it make you wonder how did a company like Apple created this so-called impact on this world, right? So, but when you think back, right, Apple has transformed and will continue to transform, right, based on how it wants its brand to sort of adapt to different market changes or different evolutions throughout humankind, right? Right. They even have this brand identity prism that talks about what they believe in and how Apple should portray its image, its perception towards the world. I won't go too detail into this, but the idea is that if you look at this at one shot, you realize there's nothing tangible about this. It's all feelings, it's all emotions, it's all about building culture, reflection, belief, right? How they want to sort of impact that picture to the audience, right? So what is the brand, right? And throughout this example that we've given, you notice that brand is sort of different from business. It's a bit different from building a business, but it is part of the business. It behaves almost human-like, whereas a business is very operational. But that's the thing. The thing is, your consumers don't care about your business, right? Customers don't care about your business. They don't care about how you manage the business. Then what they care about is what the brand has to offer for them. How can they belong in your brand? How would your brand help be a part of their daily lives, right? And that's what we we as human beings do, right? Whether it's a battle between BMW or Mercedes, iPhone and Samsung, Legoland, Disneyland, we all have our favorite brands, right? We all have our preferences, right? And that's the whole point of branding, right? So to summarize, to align, brands live in the human mind, right? Your interpretation of brand, my interpretation of brand is personal. However we see this brand, no matter how we like to convey whether brand is a logo or brand is a word or as a text or a name, whatever, right? It exists in our mind. It's a perception, right? It exists, and the thing is, it exists in conversations, right? This whole brand value, this whole meaning of brands comes when we talk to each other about brands, right? Hey, what do you have for lunch? Oh, I had KFC. Why KFC? You should have taken Texas. Texas, less oily example, right? We communicate meanings, we deliver promises, we explain to our peeps, our friends, through our mouths, through our conversations, messaging or whatever, and we define these brands as a collective mindset, right? Right. They are brands are sensed, felt, and perceived. So essentially, brands are emotions. They're sort of very in-depth into your subconscious mind, right? They empower your feelings that relates with your inner desires. And that's why great brands always will forever have their own loyal cult or their own loyal members, right? Because you as a human being, you will select brands that you can associate deeply with, that can resonate with your personality. Sorry. Hello, is there a question there? Hello?
No, it was a new joiner.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I just wondering. By the way, guys, if you have any question, you can just like ask during the Q&A as well. But if you don't understand something, you can ask me as well, straight to the point, right? Okay. So your interpretation of a brand is derived from your entire experience you have with it. Again, your interpretation of a brand is derived from the entire experience you have with a brand. We're talking about entire experiences, right? Whether you contact the brand through its product, its email, its Facebook post, a conversation from a friend, it's all personal. That's why some people like, let's say, Mercedes over BMW. Some people like BMW over Mercedes, or this water over that water, or this product over that water. It's an endless debate, right? But we interpret it by our own personal thought processes, both direct and indirect, conscious and subconscious. And that's what the brand is, right? It's so intangible that it's just a perception, right? So according to Elon Musk, right, brand is just a perception, and that perception will match reality over time, right? It's just what we want to, as business owners, what we want to give in that sense of perception, right? Other times, or sometimes it can be ahead, sometimes it will be behind. And this is because of collective thought processes, right? But brand is simply a collective impression some have on a product or a service, right? So again, example, right? Elon Musk, SpaceX talks about sending 1 million people to Mars, right? And if you think about it logically, we're nowhere close to that yet. Yeah, we can recycle rockets now, we can shoot rockets up and recycle it back, but sending people to Mars or 1 million people to Mars to live there, it's still a far-fetched idea, right? It's still a very long-term goal, right? But then again, you see, why do people believe in SpaceX or Tesla? Because that's the perception that Elon Musk painted, and a collective of individuals believe in that vision, believe in that belief, shared the same thought processes, shared the same values, and sort of spread it across the world as well, right? Of course, there'll be people who hate this idea, like, oh, we should protect the Earth and not Mars, right? But then again, that's how branding works, right? It's a perception, right? So now that you guys know what a brand is, so what is branding? And it's very important to understand these two mechanisms, right? Or these two technical terms, right? It's because when you want to build lifelong customers, right, you have to see this as resources or tools that you can sort of use into your business strategy, right? So branding is sort of, to summarize this entire process, right? Branding is sort of like you trying to put your business at the state of what it is right now into its ideal state, right? Left and right, right? So when you talk about like going to the gym, right? Changing your lifestyle, changing your diet to achieve that perception that you want to create. So as you can see here, Chris Pat, perception A versus perception B, how do you feel? Perception A looks like a funny guy, right? Someone funny, friendly, accommodating, maybe your next door uncle. But then you see perception B, someone trustworthy, right? Someone who's serious, someone who's there, someone who's going to make a change, right? Who's determined, right? Who's committed, right? So you can see it's the same person, just different perceptions, right? Different outcomes, right? But branding is about changing from A to B. This point, based on your goals, whether you want to be the best in Malaysia, whether you want to be a global brand, whether you want to build X community, whether you want to do something great like that, whether you want to be a niche in a particular industry, it doesn't matter. You have a goal, right? And that transformation has to begin internal to external. It doesn't work when you just have a logo or identity system and say, hey, I got a new logo, like me, community, look, hey, look, ooh, I've changed the logo. Doesn't make sense, right? So it's really an emotional value placed in all experiences and committed to it, right? To give you a perspective, right, on what branding really does is, if you look at the 3 core revenue-making business activities in every business, operation management, administrative, these are not revenue-making business activities. These are more cost-based because you're talking about how to operate a business, blah, blah. But for this case, these are the 3 pinnacles of the 3 friends that make money for you, right? Sales talks about closing, right? Marketing talks about generating leads. So in some cases, some business, some industries, marketing generates quality leads and passes on these leads to sales to close, right? And branding is about influencing that perception, right? They all have different roles to play. To give you a clearer background, right? You can see the activities of sales involves things like following up leads, close sales and networking, service prospects and buyers, but you require a lot of support from a strong brand and marketing campaigns or tools, right, or strategies, right? When marketing talks about marketing strategies, activating marketing activation campaigns, digital marketing, lead generation, ad spend, media spend. So it's the ROI is to generate quality leads in which your sales team can convert. But this tool also needs the brand, right? And the brand is about crafting a positive brand perception. So your target audience can sort of associate with this brand. They understand this brand. You want to ensure that the entire brand is across all experiences. So you create this holistic brand experiences. Your messaging is clear, your personality is clear, your image is clear, your identity is clear. You know what's special about you. You know how to help them. They understand how you want to help them as well. You're different from your competitors. And of course, again, you want to sort of build these assets so that you can connect better with your loyal communities, right? And the ROI here is sort of to create positive brand equity, right? You want people to sort of have good recall about your brand, right? So 3 very different things. And if you know this, why this is so fundamental to business building, again, because a lot of times, most businesses, when they struggle through bad times or when they have tested a lot of different activities, they sort of lump this together. So it's not clearly differentiated. It's like saying, okay, my accounts, admins, operation management is the same thing, right? Internal cost-based operations very clearly defined. Accounts do accounts, admin do admin, operation, finance. But when it comes to revenue making, lump everything together. So it doesn't make sense, right? So this is very important to understand how you want to utilize these tools differently, right? Another way to sort of understand how branding can help you out here is to look at these time scales. So this is by Les Binet and Peter Fields. What they've done is they've done over a series of experiments and analysis. They found out that the reason why some brands can generate revenue over time when they made a name is because they've continuously committed and persisted to brand building. So when you talk about building communities, like what I've shown you earlier in Apple's website, like the values, planning ahead for sustainability, creating events for, help making sure that there is a lot of connection with the disabled, the handicapped, going beyond just product and services, right? So there's a lot of investment, time and money in building the brand, but you won't generate sales ROI that fast. This is where marketing comes in, because marketing activation talks about how do you generate leads, which in certain cases where even handle sales because of online e-commerce and stuff like that, right? But you generate this sort of activation campaigns, like maybe example CNY campaigns, Christmas campaigns, launch campaigns, blah, blah, right? And when you have these campaigns here, when the campaigns stop or when the duration of the festivity stops, your sales go down, right? And then you do another campaign, goes down, do another campaign, goes down. So it's sort of this endless loop of activeness. You have to sort of keep doing it. You have to, no matter what, you still have to. Like I said, sales, marketing, and branding are 3 components that has to be actively done. But then again, they have to synergize, but they're different from one another. And the thing about branding is, again, like I said, you might be investing a lot in branding, like branding, doing things for community, CSR, whatever, right? Building assets, helping, giving a lot of offerings upfront, a lot of value upfront that is not product centric, And over time, people talk about you, right? people like you, right? People remember you, right? What you have done. You're human, right? You connect with them in that special way, right? And this is where, over time, your name or your logo or your brand, doesn't matter what, starts to generate revenue, right? It starts to generate revenue because that's why when you establish this, it's because you have stayed committed to your marketing activities, your sales programs, and your holistic brand building experience, right? This is very, very important. This is very, very, very important for businesses to understand how much they want to invest, basically time and money, into the revenue making programs, right? Okay, so to summarize what branding is really all about, essentially business is about building revenue, right? That's the whole point you got into business in the first place. If you talk about a personal point of view, yeah, some people say brand business is about transforming lives, right? Stuff like that. But that's more of a branding thing, actually. Because without a well-run business, you don't have enough revenue. You can't do good branding as well, because everything still needs basic foundation, right, of money, right? But branding is about building communities, right? And that's the whole goal of branding. You want to build you want to create a world, right? Your business wants to create this world for your target communities, right? You want to create a place, a special place where your people, your customers, your internal teams, they feel connected with this brand. And that this brand is a part of their daily lives, right? And that's very, very important. Okay. And okay, so now you understand what brand is, you understand branding. So next question, how do we build a brand that converts people into lifelong customers, right? How do we do that, right? Okay. So step one, right? Decide whether you are ready to commit to building a brand for your target community. It starts from this mindset. And the reason why I always highlight this mindset, because if the brand leadership or the business leadership or the management team is not in alignment to, example, if it's very salesy, you're in your internal meetings, you have your management meetings, and everyone's talking about sales, then that team is not ready, because you're not empathizing towards your customers. You're not having empathy towards your community. You're having more thoughts about yourself, your self-interest, right, as a business, right? And branding is about building for your community. It's about going beyond. When you make the money, do you budget out for your community, right? When you have good sales during a certain period of time, did you give back to the community? It's not just CSR, like I said. It could be a lot of different things, as I showed you in Apple, right? The things they've done, right? You can even look up Nike and stuff like that. Every big brand out there has dedicated some sort of effort, or even a constant effort, right, to building communities, right? So decide whether you're ready to commit to building a brand for your target community. That's very important, step one, right? So if, let's say, step one, check, then you're ready, we go to step two. You got to accept that brand building is a journey and not a result, right? It's not marketing, it's not sales, it's branding, right? If you think back as well, Facebook first 3-4 years, it wasn't famous. People were still using Friendster. But as a brand, as the collective started to migrate into Facebook, slowly it became a well-known brand, right? Same with TikTok, right? Before TikTok came out, people was like, too much social media platforms. Nobody's gonna jump to another one, right? Then TikTok came out. Why? Dance videos, inspiring videos, short clips, easy to. Everyone's a video editor right now. Everyone's a sound editor, because it's so easy to just plug and play stuff, right, and share, right, to create high-value content, right? So accept that brand building is a journey and not a result, because it takes a lot of time. Again, I showed you the CrispPad photo as well. To transform from point A to point B, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of dedication, a lot of mindset change to see that, right? And even if you achieve that body like CrispPad, right, you still have to commit, right? You still have to maintain, right? See that? So it's a journey, it's not a result, it's a lifestyle, put it this way, right? Step three, right? Be ready to experience and champion internal and external change. This is very, very important as well. Again, if you want to take on branding, you want to take on rebranding or build a great brand that, so I want to build a brand that, can change people's lives, can change the world, then you have to be ready to champion it. Because there's a lot of problems that's going to happen. There's a lot of differences of values, and it's very important to champion that internal change where your internal team behaves like your first customers, you respect them like your first customers, and they sort of champion and fight for you as well, so that they spread that emotion across all boards. Everyone is in alignment, your customers feel it, right? And that's very, very important, right? And step 4, again, be really, really sure. And you notice the reason why I've been repeating this sort of really sure, are you sure, are you sure, are you sure? Because there's the reason why a lot of brands out there are not big brands, are not great brands. There's a lot of reason why a lot of brands out there try to do it big. They have a dream, you know, a nice dream, like, I want to make millions, my brand wants to be in different states, you know, I want to, you know, all these dreams, right? But end up, branding is just a logo, just a skin, you know, just look fancy. Nothing, no change on the customer experience, no change on the entire experience. Yeah, you know, it's like saying, right, that okay, put it this way, it's sort of like Disneyland. To give you an example, like Disneyland, right? Did you know to be a mascot in Disneyland, like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, you have to go through a program before you, a sort of a step-by-step process before you actually come out to greet the audience. In the changing room, you're still, let's say I'm Daniel and Shannon's my colleague, right? And I'm Mickey Mouse, she's Donald Duck, example. So we are dressing up. And after we dress up, we have to move towards this, like a lobby, right? Lobby area. And in that lobby area, right, for about 30 minutes or 10 minutes, I don't quite remember already, right? For that duration, right, you have to be in character, in the zone. So now I see Shannon as Donald Duck. I see myself as Mickey Mouse. I'm talking, hey, I'm Mickey Mouse, you know? And Shannon is like behaving like Donald Duck, example, right? And there's no customers there. It's just colleagues. And we're in character. So after like 10, 30 minutes or something, the door opens out and the eager customers outside the door, waiting, you know, with the children and the family. And then you come like, hey, you know, you start performing in character and you start greeting and hugging kids and taking photos and all that, right? Okay. So if Disney did not have these processes, right? For example, let's say if Malaysia would have a Disneyland and, you know, in Malaysia, right, we're not serious about brand building or we're not really serious about committing to our experiences, you probably see Mickey Mouse at the corner of the street, right, smoking a cigarette, right, you know, like, oh, tired, panas, and go to the corner. And imagine the kid, the small boy, right, who has always envisioned to go to Disneyland, right, came to Disneyland, right, and saw this Mickey Mouse, right, oh, it's actually a guy smoking in the corner. How would it feel, right? So you sort of understand that this branding is not just the identity spectrum, it's the entire strategy to the entire experience, right? It's a lot of commitment in building a great brand. And that's why, of course, no brand is perfect. Even Apple, as big as it is not perfect, but 80-90% is positive brand experience, right? 80-90% positive brand experience. And that's how you want to sort of angle that. And you got to really research why, and that's why it's good to sort of, before you get into branding, research why big brands do this, why they keep rebranding, why they keep branding, why do they keep changing it? It's not just change logo, you know, that's just surface value, you know, like Xiaomi's 3 years change from a square logo to a half square logo. I don't know what to call that, right? It's not just 3 years, just change logo. You know? There's a lot of internal restructuring, a lot of internal brand alignment to create a holistic brand experience. So again, it's not just surface, like seeing your friend like 2 years ago, maybe unfit, then 2 years later became very fit. But you know, we don't see the pain point, we don't see the transformation, we don't see the sacrifices he has done. We just see the new him, you know, and we respond to the new him, right? Okay, so once the whole mindset thing is done, right, you really understood why you're ready for branding, you're really ready for holistic branding, you're really ready to transform your brand, right? You sort of have to start defining your brand goals, right? And brand goals, like I said, is a bit different from your sales goals. It's different from your business goals because, again, it's about building communities. So you have to think very big, right? So why do you exist as a brand? Example, let's say if you're selling durian, fruits, right? Durian, right? So it's very direct, durian. People like durian, eat durian, happy, right? Good durian, happy, right? But if you think bigger, right? Are you trying to sort of spread the joy of durian around the world? You know, there's a lot of people who haven't savored the realities of the joy of eating durian, example. Are you trying to help people sort of experience that euphoria of eating durian, example? That could be a purpose, right? So whatever case, whatever product, right, again, it's about building communities, right? So you have to sort of go down this question list, right? What is your purpose? You know, how do you want to impact the world? Who are you serving? Can you define your communities better? Don't be like, oh, I want to serve everyone. I want everyone to buy. It doesn't make sense, right? Because there's always a group of advocates who will fight for you and spread the word. The mass market will just follow blindly. They're like sheeps. Mass market people are like sheep, right? So, but you need sort of champions in your communities, right? So what are you trying to solve, right? It's not just about, okay, I'm trying to sell good durian and people pay money for that. It's much more deeper, right? What makes you different from the rest? Why should your customers care? Right? Why should your customers care? Because if your goals aren't big enough, isn't driven towards community building, why should they care? Because if you're just selling a product, you're selling a commodity, you're just selling a transactional service or product, right? Right? They can just find another brand that cares about that, who builds communities for that, and you lose out. You lose out as a business, right? Because branding is a thing now. It's a necessity in business building, right? So, example, maybe you compare yourself to competitors. Some competitors are not doing brand building, blah blah. It's fine. Then one guy comes in, builds a great brand, builds all these community events, builds all this holistic brand experience, builds loyalty programs, blah blah. And so then it starts siphoning customers from all these businesses, right? And you lose out because you're just selling a product. You're just putting a number on a product, right? And that's the problem, right? Step 6, conduct a brand audit, right? So once you define your goals, you have to sort of be realistic. Like, again, identify your ideal community, research your competitors, really look at not just the price. A lot of times when people do audits or market audits, right, you just look at price. Oh, mine is cheaper than the other guy. Cheaper lah, cheaper. Oh, yeah, we go cheaper, we can win your customer. No, it's not that. It's always about your target group, always about your target communities, right? And you sort of have to really compare their offerings and their experiences, right? What kind of experience do they give? If is the experience holistic? What are things they're doing better than you? How about the customer service, right? How they portraying their ads? How they portraying their website? How they portraying their retail spaces? You know, what are they doing more than most businesses, right? And even in terms of the offerings, how they packaging it, how they delivering the experience, right? All these things, right, leads to so-called a more in-depth audit about the brand, right? Again, not just numbers, right? Numbers are important, but not just numbers, right? Map out your customer experience and journey. Again, this is important. So when you map it out, like point A, when customers come in, what do they interact with, all the way to point Z, and you can sort of see what part of the brand or that you're lacking, right? It could be just touch point. Example, let's say you have a website, but if you go in depth into the website and say, hey, maybe my website doesn't have that very nice experience. The photos that we show are very stock imagery, image-ish. It doesn't have that soul. It's not really portraying what we believe in. Let's say you believe in innovation, example. You believe in human innovation. Then, you know, the photos and videos that you portray should have like robot and human together hugging, you know, stuff like that. You know, the message that you portray out is really about believing in how robots and humans can build a better future together, example, blah, 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 right? So really go deep in depth on every touch point, not just the physical aspect, but also look at the emotional aspect of it, right? And be truthful about your strengths and weaknesses. So after conducting all these audits, right, your competitors, your own journeys, your own touch points, really go all out and really study what is good about it and what is bad about it. And really be honest with yourself, because I think that honesty really helps you understand that, hey, if I'm gonna do a rebrand, let's say I'm gonna turn on 5,000, do a logo design and some identity systems, it's going to change everything. No, you have to be very, very realistic. You have to be very realistic about your strengths. If let's say you don't have time to do like daily content, example, write that down. You know, just whatever that you're lacking, write that down. Right, whatever that you're good at, maybe you're very good at cooking or a specific recipe or creating a specific product. Right, write that down. Right, and once you have the audit, right, you can sort of start to craft your strategy. Right, and by crafting this strategy means, again, brand positioning is about how do you fight for a space and stay in the minds of your target customers, right? How do you fight for a space? The human brain, right, has limited amount of space in its memory. I mean, we have very big memory spectrums now, but in terms of subconscious to conscious connection, right, you only have a few names per brand, per industry category. So example, let's say if I say, hey, guys, what do you eat for lunch, right? I don't know. Then you narrow it down, right? Say, okay, I feel like eating fried chicken. What should we eat? What fried chicken should we eat, right? And then you say, KFC, you know, Texas, maybe Mama, right? Then you go like, I want, or maybe I want something creamy like Korean chicken. Oh, you know, Korean chicken, yeah, maybe. And Kyochon, okay, Kyochon. Right. So you can see, right, brands still exist. There's a space, there's a slot in the market, right? In the minds of the customers, right? So the question is your brand there? Is your brand in that specific industry niche, right? Or in that specific industry category, right? right? So brand positioning is about how do you fight, whether it's through identifying your personality, whether it's through creating a compelling story. Again, brand stories are not about yourself. It's about how your brand can help these communities, how this brand plays an important role in this community building, right? But your promises, the best promise, like Domino's. Domino's doesn't fight on quality. It has never once promoted about quality. It has never once promoted about taste. It promotes about what? Speed, right? Speed. 30 minutes or less, you get one free pizza, right? There's just that. And when you talk about, I'm hungry now, I want a pizza now, first thing comes to mind, Domino's. 30 minutes or less, one free pizza. See that? That's positioning. So you don't have to fight in every space or offering or promise. You just have to find your ground, right? Your position, right? And of course, it has to be different in your competitors, right? If you're just following your competitors, you're not differentiating, it's very hard for your customers, right, to sort of differentiate in their mind, right? So this is very, very important, okay? Next, organize and plan your offerings with brand architecture. So architecture is not, again, brand architecture is not constructing a building, it's sort of constructing your brand. So we talk about different sub-brands, whether your products are very diverse, caters to different groups of people, caters to very different groups of individuals, then you probably need a more complex brand architecture where each product has its own identity systems, its own messaging, and connects to different buyers. But let's say if you want your brand to sort of work like a family of brands, like an umbrella, or what we call a master brand, where people can associate the quality of the parent brand with its products, then you share the same name and same. So I mean, there's a lot. We can actually just Google brand architecture. There's a lot of insights on this as well. But the idea is sort of how do you organize your offerings and help your customers connect with your brand through all these sub brands or brands or offerings or products, right? Okay. And last is you sort of have to create an activation plan, right? A lot of companies come out and say, hey, I just want a website, or I don't know how to launch my brand. I don't know what to do. I don't have a plan. I don't have a goal, right? But the baseline of your activation plan stems from your goals, whether it is to get 1,000 leads or to make X amount of revenue. And you can be very, very realistic though, because you have to budget out costs to make sure that the launch makes sense, right? Starts from your goals, and then you go to the channel. Okay, the best activation plan, everything. If you ask me, what's the best activation plan? Everything. Billboards, website, you know, influencers, everything. Everything's the best. That's the best. You want the best? That's the best, right? Imagine you have like 20 influencers backing you up or 100 influencers backing you up. Your brand is at every billboard across Klang Valley. You have a website that's well oiled. You know, it can generate leads. It's automated. It goes to a CRM. You know, everything is there, right? That's the best, right? But that's the whole point of brand activation plan. Is we have to be realistic. There's a budget, and we have to be realistic, right? You have to understand how much it costs to acquire a customer. So things like that. But those are more marketing stuff. Right? Again, what we're talking here is how do you launch your brand? How do you make an impact? How do you want to create your communities, right? But no matter what, you got to work with marketing teams for this, because it's very, very important, because they know the cost implications behind ad spend, etc., right? Okay, so once you have a strategy, you have the audit, you have a strategy, then we only step into designing your brand experience. So this is where a lot of business get it wrong. They thought, okay, I just want it fast. I want to quickly do a logo. I want to quickly do a system, and then I do my marketing fast, speed. You know, I want to get CrispPad point A to CrispPad point B in 3 days, in 1 week. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, right? Without a solid strategy, launching, investing all this money and time into building a holistic brand experience could just entirely waste your effort and time, right? You just be burning all the money, all the time, and all the effort, because you could be running it wrongly, you could be targeting the wrong communities, you could be building the wrong communities, and that's what we want to avoid, right? So, but with strategy, once you come down to building or designing your brand experience, it makes a lot more sense, because when you design your brand verbal and visual experience, right? Whether it's the name, whether it's the messaging system, whether it's the colors, the logo, the touch points, the typography, the images, the icons, you know, the motion, the videos, right? All these things, right? The composition of elements, right? The look and feel, the concept behind it. If it ties back to your strategy, then it's good to go, right? Because you're very clear cut, you know who you're targeting, you know how you want to position, you know your vast array of different products, sub-architecture, you know what name connects with what audience, example, right? Especially Malaysia, very challenging. You know? Chinese audience, Malay audience, English audience, right? Indian audience. So you have so many different audiences, what should your brand talk like, feel like, right? Right. Then after you have created a system, a verbal and visual system, you understand how to communicate your brand. You sort of have to activate it internally first, right? Again, your team, your employees are your first customers. If they don't buy your brand, they don't believe in your brand, you're not building a brand, right? If they don't believe your brand, there's something wrong with your brand, right? Because people believe in people, right? People must sort of get the same. If you stick to your values, like your brand values is about, example, you believe in transforming the world through trust, example, right? But trust is just, if trust is just a word on the wall, on your vision, mission, values wall, and it's not abstracted into assets or programs or leadership methods, then you're not building a brand. So it's very, very difficult, right? But you have to activate internally first, get the buy-in, get the team to align, understand how they want to service customers, understand the entire experience, right? Only then you activate it externally, right? You sort of launch your brand when your team is ready. You have all the tools ready, you have all the assets ready, you have all the campaigns, everything's working properly. You want to make sure that your entire experience, there's no quick cut, shortcut, right? And you work with partners if you need to fill in gaps, right? So you spread it across different channels, physical or digital, doesn't matter, right? Of course, depends on your target group as well, or target audience, right? And that's how you sort of establish that entire brand experience, right? But the journey doesn't stop there, because after you've launched your brand, you've maintained that, you sort of still have to sustain and grow your brand, right? And you do that with management, because you still have to make sure that your assets, all the assets that you invest in, whether it's your content, whether it's your logo, whether it's your messaging system, all these assets, these revenue making assets, these assets that connect your brand with your customers. So you got to make sure that it's well stored, organized, properly backed up. You got to protect and guard your brand. Make sure that it's trademarked, because again, trademarking takes years. In Malaysia, it's 1 to 2 years. Singapore does it faster, 4 to 8 months. But in Malaysia, it's damn long, right? So you don't want to build all these assets, build all these campaigns. You start doing communities, and whack, 2 years later, someone stole your brand, right? Someone trademarked it, and you have to change your brand name. That's very, very sad, right? But of course, in Malaysia, right, the good thing is they protect you when you launch your brand. So when you launch your brand, the trademark authorities, right, they sort of acknowledge that, hey, you already launched it earlier at that time. It's just that you were late to trademark, example, right? You can still fight in court, stuff like that, if someone steals it, right? But in some countries where they go by civil law, like China, they go by filing dates. So it doesn't mean that if you launch the brand here or in China, but you have never filed a trademark, and if someone filed the trademark, he's going to win that trademark rights over you. So that's China. So you have to consider as well. That's why strategy is very important. Brand strategy really looks at all this. When you do brand architecture, you look at how you want to protect your brand. Let's say your business is going to go into China, you got to put trademark upfront already. It's a very different game than Malaysia, right? So these are very important thought processes to have when building a brand, right? And of course, you continue to build and develop your brand, because again, how do you build loyal customers? You got to make sure that your brand is alive, right? So you got to keep doing content, you got to keep doing campaigns, you got to doing community events. Just become, okay, as simple as how it sounds like, just become that friend. Make your business like a friend that your customers trust. We all want this friend, right? We always want this friend that when we call, he can hang out with us. When we're down, he makes us laugh. When we're happy, he's with us. He or she is like always with us, our best friend. That's how you sort of have to position your brand, right? You got to make it there. You got to be present. You got to be everywhere. You got to make sure that they can always see you. They can always interact with you, right? So that's sort of a part of this whole shebang of building loyal customers, right? And the last step here is, of course, to wrap up the how to build lifelong customers, is sort of you have to persist and persist, right? It's like building friendships, right? You might argue with a friend, you might have the issue with your friends, but you got to persist, because great brands aren't built in a year. No, they're not built in a year. A year doesn't even do justice to brand building, right? It takes a lot of time. Some brands, they make it big after like a few years, 5 years, maybe 2, 3. But it's a lot of persistence, because again, you're trying to build communities, right? You're not just trying to make a buck. That's business. When you activate your business mind, you think about making revenue. But when you think about branding, you're thinking about how to build communities. How do you transform the world, right? So it's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of upfront sacrifice. And you have to make sure that all experiences is well kept, because one bad experience, like I said, the Mickey Mouse example with the one smoking, you will lose out in your total brand equity. Of course, you can salvage it, you can save it, but those are strategies that you can employ later. But again, it's not about, you can do it once or twice, but more than that, then it's hard to save the brand, right? So again, it's like like I said, to simplify this entire technicals, right? We have to look sort of like this brand building program, like making a friend, becoming a good friend to your customers, right? That thought process. Okay, so I think if man, we have this method to sort of help guide businesses throughout this entire process, from audit, strategy, brand experience to management. We walked you through entire workshops in terms of strategic sessions where you sort of understand yourself better, build experiences that is unique in your industry that can connect better with your customers, so help you manage as well. So we sort of guide businesses throughout this entire experience to build the brand of your dreams, right? So that's it. Thank you. I hope you guys have gained tremendous value from this talk, and I wish you all the best in your branding journey.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniel, for your sharing.
Thank you,
session. It was very, very insightful. All right. So now let's move on to the Q&A session.
Yes.
Okay. So does anyone have any question? You can just type it into the chat box, or you can share your video or unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, we have one question. The question is, how do you know when is the right time to, or when should you rebrand your business?
Okay. I think there are two forces at play here. The first force would probably be your business situation. Example, let's say if you have done sales for many, many years, or marketing for many, many years, you have generated revenue, but your brand is not known yet. It's not big yet. There's no loyal communities that sort of feel like they belong to your brand, right? That's the best time for rebranding, because again, when you build a strong brand foundation, then your marketing and sales can sort of up the game as well. So it acts like that foundational baseline for your marketing and sales activities. Yes, that would be the first force, or the first case scenario. The second best case scenario is sort of when you feel that market has changed, internal teams or management teams are not in alignment. You feel like there are a lot of self-interest in the business, whereas people are not really running the business. Like, you have a dream to build this great brand, but the way the management team is running is like a very KPI on the dot based business. So there's no future. The only future that is presented in the business is numbers. There's no thought process of how the brand wants to transform the world. And yeah, it's a good time to get a consultant and sort of wake up everyone and say, hey, great brands aren't built this way. It's about really looking at, it's really about looking at how you want to benefit customers. Like, every time you buy products, we also look at how these brands benefit or be a part of our lives, right? Yeah. So did I answer your question, Sarah?
Okay, so let's move on to the next question. I got a direct message from writer at LPMY. He asked, what is a good way to differentiate your brand architecture?
A good way to differentiate your brand architecture. Okay, I think before we talk about differentiating architecture, we first have to understand whether the models work for your business or not, because there are cost implications. As you know, what we know is there are 5 current models: master brand, sub brand, endorsed brand, freestanding brand, and hybrid, right? So these models have different ways of managing brand growth, different trademark implications, different ways of connecting with your customers. So I think instead of thinking about how to differentiate with your competitors, you got to look at whether you can operate it internally first, whether it makes sense to run the business as a brand as a whole, or whether you should run it as a sub-brand where each individual sub-brand category can connect differently with its customers. You have to definitely look at it more on the leadership point of view first, cost base as well, before talking about differentiating. If you're looking at, okay, I've done my homework, I've done baseline, we can operate our our brand architecture. We want to differentiate from competitors because maybe a competitor is using the same architecture style. Then it's not really down to the architecture already. The differentiating factor comes from the identity, your verbal and your visual, which is represented by your positioning. So it's more like differentiating your brand positioning, expressing that through identity systems. Yeah. So did I answer your question?
Okay. Yes, he said yes.
Okay,
So,
great. Yeah. Okay. How can you
uh,
measure if your brand is working and getting more people in? Okay, how can you measure? Measure, well, surveys. You can conduct surveys. You can conduct questionnaires, interviews, focus groups. Basically, like I said, brands exist as conversations. So the only way you're gonna get thoughts from your audiences is to run this kind of surveys. That's the only way. You gotta ask relevant questions though, like whether what are you looking at, what's the objective of this research as well. Let's say if you're looking to get like feedback for good positive brand experiences, then make sure that the question is all about positive brand experiences, like how do you feel when you interact with our brand, do you like our sales experience, blah blah blah, so then you come up with a way to sort of calculate the final outcome. Yeah, but the only way you want to sort of measure that is, again, depending on the way you ask the question on the survey. But yeah, did I answer your question? How can you measure your brand? Your brand's working.
all right,
Did I
we
answer
can
your question?
move on.
Yes. Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, we can move on to the next question now.
Okay, where is a good place to start building communities for small businesses? Personally, I find that FB is quite crowded. Okay, so okay, when we talk about building communities, right, we're not really talking about channels. I think the big confusion is channels first, right? Channels first is a tactical mindset. You need the channels. I mean, you need to identify channels, but not at its primary stage. It's more like the primary is more strategic, right? On the strategic level, we're looking at who is your community first? What kind of people you want to associate with? Example. So example, let's say I use Harley Davidson, for example, right? So people who buy Harley, ideal community, right? Those guys with beards, tattoo, I love my mom tattoo, jacket, leather jacket, right? And if you buy one, you probably get that as well. You probably go get the leather jacket, just to suit the brand, right? And you see, Harley Davidson has clearly identified its community. They know that these are the people, the road drivers, the wind riders, they love the wind, they love the long drive on the bikes, right? And when you look at those people, you look at the channels or the touch points, the places where they reside, right? These people, where do they reside? Maybe they reside at the bar, right? Maybe they like to go bar after evening drive, they stop by the bar, they like to eat roast meat, they go and get roast meat, stuff like that. They if you say Facebook again is just a digital channel, but if you have to really think about all these really emotional places first, right? Then you sort of go into groups, you go into small niche channels, or like maybe you find like Harley Davidson Malaysia, or Riders Malaysia, or whatever, right? So there's a lot of ways to sort of tap into the channels, but again, before the channels, go understand who your community is first. Yes. So did I answer your question? Joshua? Okay, great.
Okay.
All right. So next question. How do I launch a new product or service line so that it fits with my existing brand? Well, it depends. Okay, this question, right? If you say you want to fit in, is it a personal interpretation, or is something that is more there is survey that there is a thought process or a strategy behind it? Example, let's say if you want to launch a product that is targeting a totally different target audience or totally different consumer, then maybe your existing brand is servicing, let's say, older folks, right? So then you want to launch a brand that serves younger folks, right? And it doesn't make sense to sort of fit that into your existing brand. This is where brand architecture comes in, because you have to understand, in brand architecture, you have to understand what sub-brands, what brands can associate with what target audiences, right? Yeah, so the big question always goes back to brand strategy, because you have to really understand who you're really targeting here. Yeah. So did I answer your question, Jason? Okay, great. how does a brand, or this is just a number, right? How does the brand design make a good impression to people? Okay, this is a very good question, because when you talk about a brand's design, it's subjective. Like I said, brand is a perception, right? So the question is, which people, who are you trying to impress? Who are you trying to connect with? Example, let's say if you do a brand design that is luxurious, right? It's targeting the CEOs, targeting the rich tai-tais, targeting the rich guys, whatever, right? And if you create a brand that connects, feels like them, yes, it will impress them because they sort of associate with the same values, they associate the same personalities, right? But let's say if you use this luxury brand and try to sell it to maybe streetwear people, right? Street style people, right? They might feel like, hey, we're not snobbish, we're not like cocky, rich ass people, we're really we're about being cool, about being hype, example, right? So the design is really, the impression of the design is really dependent on the people you're targeting. All right. Okay, did I answer your question? Yeah, okay, great. YE, right? Okay, cool. Alvin, may I know a new business need? May I know if a new business need a marketing strategy first or brand strategy first? Oh, okay. Marketing or branding first. Chicken egg. I would always say, okay, because I'm a brand consultant, I might be biased towards saying brand strategy comes first because marketing is about reaching out to customers. It's about trying to tap into, create demand, but they need a base to express, right? They need to understand your values as a business owner. They need to understand what your brand stands for, what's the belief of your brand, how does it feel, how does it look? Then they can take that and market it, right? So I personally believe that brand strategy comes first. But I do know that there are certain marketing gurus out there who say marketing strategy comes first. So that is highly debatable. I'm not going to say whether which is right or wrong, but according to me, I still think brand comes first because branding is a very human thing. Again, if you want to help, you want to sell something to people, I believe you got to help people first. You got to give the value upfront first. You got to find the right connection with people first. It's a very human thing, like I said. But that's my opinion, right? So Alvin, did I answer your question? All right, cool. Vernon, right? For a long existing company, 10, 20 years old, do you think is because they did their brand right or has nothing to do with branding? Okay, Vernon, to answer you right, okay, so is branding similar to making your own cult to worshiping you forever? Okay, this is like a connection. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so Vernon, if you don't do branding, you're already branding. Even if you don't do branding, it's the same like if you don't do marketing, you're already marketing. So what I'm trying to say is, because brand is a perception, if you didn't use the right methods to do branding, you're already telling people this is your brand, this is what you are. Whether you're a messy brand, if let's say your identity is not consistent, you feel like you have a lot of different messages, you have a lot of different visuals, you have a lot of different promises left and right, then that's your brand. That's the perception you paint to your audience. So even it has nothing to do with proper branding or using branding, you are indirectly already branding yourself. Yeah, so that is why it's very important. Whether if a company has succeeded in 10, 20 years, it could be very sales driven, like those days, example, the property industry. The property industry didn't have to do like proper branding. They just need a brochure, the site confirmation that they're going to build. So there's some construction going on the site, right? Not a brochure, just a leaflet, right? Some logo, some very simple logo design like Nilai Impian or Taman Dugat Uta or whatever, right? Very baseline stuff. And you could sell and you could make a lot of money from that, right? Because property is expensive, right? So that's it. Just one collateral, one salesperson. Don't even need the uniform. Construction on site, sell, right? So, but because that at that time, right, people were simpler, right? There's not a lot of competitors. The market was different, right? But today there's choices, right? You have choices. You have internet, you have social media, you have entrepreneurs are rising, people are trying to do more and more things, right? And this is where proper branding comes in because it helps you differentiate from your competitor. It helps you build a deeper connection with your customers. Right. So did I answer your question, Vernon? Okay, cool. Right. So Vic, is branding similar to making your own cult to worship you forever? Yeah. I would say that, yep. That's why you get a lot of people arguing left and right, like iPhone versus Samsung, no, I like this brand, no, I like this brand better, I like that brand better. It's all perspective, it's all perception. But yeah, the whole idea of branding is sort of like to create this cult. Yeah. I mean, cult is a very extreme word, but that's how great brands do it. That's how they strive to do it, really trying to create like a, almost religion-like behavior. And that's what you want, especially when you're talking about brand building. You want people to behave like you. That's why, like I said, it's not okay. Like, imagine if I ask you guys to wear a Mickey Mouse hat right now outside the mall, you'd be embarrassed, right? You feel sad and embarrassed, right? But if you sort of wear that in Disneyland, it's totally okay, right? It's totally okay to wear Mickey Mouse hat in Disneyland, right? Because of how it influences your behavior, right? So yeah, it's very cult-like. Yeah. So did I answer you, Vic? Okay. Vernon, what do you say to people who say branding is expensive? Yeah, I would say yes, it is. It is expensive. I would say it's a luxury. It's a luxury. I would say it's a luxury. I would say, because the reason why I say it is because the common misconception is that people think that branding can be solved from a logo designer or a graphic designer who comes and do a bunch of logos and designs, and they think that they can build the next Apple or the next Nexus or the next whatever, right? I would say that it's okay. If you were to put it in perspective, sales always comes first. If you ask me, if you want to talk about the ROI in terms of timeline, right? Sales is the most instant, because if you run sales, you have a sales team to run for you. You generate revenue on the dot. It just takes matters of days to weeks, right? Of course, some cases, depending on industry, it might take months, right? But still, sales is the fastest way for you to generate revenue, because the objective of sales is to close. Marketing on the other hand, right, is about spreading the awareness, reaching out to more audiences, grabbing them, generating leads, right, quality leads, right, so which your sales can come in and close, right? So marketing is more midterm, because you need to think of strategies, you need to think of campaigns, you need to think of like how to reach your audiences, so it's more midterm. You get the results midterm. Branding is like super long term. So if you remember the diagram I showed you guys earlier, marketing activation versus brand building, right? So brand building is sort of like a long-term investment. It's like a stock investment where you invest like an Apple stock before it's famous, you put it there. Then after 10 years, boom, or 5 years, boom, it's something like that. Brand building is a very long-term ROI, but if you don't do it now, you still, so it's just a delay, you know what I mean? You don't do it now, eventually other brands will have started, they will be building their communities, but you'll be losing out in the long run. Yeah, and that's why at the end of the day, everything's a brand. The biggest asset of your business is your brand, right? Your brand is representing you, your business in the stocks, in front of your signage. When your people talk about it, hey, who do you work for? Oh, I work at Google, I work at Apple, So brand is actually your biggest asset as a business. So I think in Malaysia, a lot of people still don't get that. So yeah, I would just say it's expensive. I would definitely say it's a luxury. Yeah. Yeah, so did I answer your question, Vernon? Yeah, so Vernon, did I answer your question? Yeah, I think I'll just move on, right? Okay, so Vic, Shannon, do we have enough time?
I guess we can have one more question, then I think we will need to end. Yep.
All right. Okay. So why do Malaysians prefer international brands than local brands? Let's say Bata. Are Malaysians not willing to brand? Well, it's I think it's the context of culture. Again, like I said, brand is a perception. It's highly attuned with emotions, with values, with purpose. So apparently, international brands are very good at attaching their values and purposes and tell it in the form of story in which people can relate with, right? And but if you think about Bata, right, you know how Malaysians perceive local brands and say, hey, this company got let's say government link or whatever, right? And you associate very, very lousy Malaysian values, right, with this brand and say like, oh, Bata, buy and throw away, it's made from a Malaysian company, sure they don't care one, we tend to. And the reason why people do that is because Bata did not empower or did not focus on messaging or visuals to sort of empower the community to talk positive about that. If they did more campaigns, more brand awareness or engagement events, they stay true to they evolve their identity and make sure that they're always telling them about how serious they are. They show behind the scenes, they talk about how they want to help communities more with Bata. Then yeah, people will start talking better about Bata. But the problem is when you don't do that as a brand and you allow the community to just talk bad about you. Yeah. Okay, so did I answer your question, Victor? Yeah, okay, Vernon, last question, right? So Shannon, do you have one more question for one more?
Okay, we can go ahead with
Yeah,
one.
okay,
Yep.
so I think branding is like insurance to protect your brand from, yeah, you can say that, yes. Both consciously and subconsciously, both direct and indirectly. When you talk about tangible outcomes of branding, it's definitely your systems, your identity systems, your strategy, and definitely your trademarking. That's the most tangible, your trademark. If you talk about the intangibles, like how do people feel about your brand? How does a collective group of individuals or a collective group of people have that shared perception to your brand? And yes, it behaves like an insurance. Yes, you got to invest now. I would say it's more like stock investment. I would say it's more like property investment. You invest now and it keep growing. It grows in value, but you got to keep maintaining it. You got to keep injecting some, making sure that it's still active and doing its job. Yeah.
Okay, I think that will be the last question. Thank you so much, Daniel, for your time, and thank you
All
for
right.
everyone for joining this session and asking so many questions. Before you leave, we will be having we're having a Thank you man will be providing a brand discovery session. So if you have even more questions to ask, you can just scan this QR code here, and also they will be conducting this session for free. So they will be having interview and focus group, site visits, business and offering analysis, and brand experience and assets analysis. So if you scan the QR code here, you'll be contacted by one of their brand strategists. And also before you leave, make sure to fill up our survey form. And later you'll receive an email also where you receive the link for the survey form and also a copy of the slides and recording. So thank you so much everyone for joining. Do have a lookout on our next Launchpad Accelerator series. And yeah, thank you everyone.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.